Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 530 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us this Tuesday. I'm Jeanelle Slade. Well, tonight, state and local fire and disaster experts warn of another dangerous fire season. Citing hot weather and a lack of precipitation, Yellowstone County commissioners today enact Stage 1 fire restrictions prohibiting all open burning across the county at 12:01 a.m. Wednesday. Now, that's just 6.5 hours from now, and those restrictions will remain in place until the commission rescinds its order. Now, violating the order can mean a fine of up to $5,000 for a person, $10,000 for an organization, and up to 6 months in jail. Now, wildland fires are already burning across the state, and today firefighting leadership met virtually to brief Montana Governor Steve Bullock. Q2's Mitch Laggy was at the Bureau of Land Management fire station here in Billings to sit in on that briefing.
Federal, state, and local fire management agencies are all preparing for an above-average fire season across the state of Montana, and firefighters will have to do their work while under COVID-19 restrictions. Department heads of all of the agencies met today with Montana Governor Steve Bullock to preview the season. Representatives from the Forest Service, Bureau of Indian Affairs, National Guard, and others were all on the Zoom call. Montana had a pretty easy fire season last year, but officials are expecting it to be worse in 2020. The focus for firefighters this season will be on the initial attack to get the fires snuffed out quickly and not require a major response. If a fire grows too large and requires assistance from other agencies, fire camps will have to be set up with social distancing and sanitation protocol. One aspect of the changed camp is that firefighters will stay with their local groups and not congregate in a mess hall or other areas of camp.
We've been dealing with large complex fires for years and years, and we will do it again this year. And we will just layer in that COVID issue to try and be as safe and careful and distanced as we can from one another. If we crack a COVID case, someone gets exposed or has the virus, we will immediately deal with that. We have protocols in place to do that. We think we're ready. As
wildfire season moves into the Treasure State, officials said that the public should do their part to make sure that those fires never get started in the first place. In Billings, Mitch Laggy, MTN News.
All right, thanks so much, Mitch. Now, 61% of all wildfires in Montana are human-caused. And the DNRC asked people to take extra care this year with fire, noting the fewer fires started will ultimately mean a lower risk for firefighter health. Well, onto the fire watch. The Lost Creek fire west of Cody, Wyoming has burned almost 600 acres and is now 35% contained. Firefighters have made good progress with the crews putting down fire lines. Some resources are actually being released this afternoon. The Forest Service continues to ask drivers to stop stopping between mile markers 26 and 28 on Highway 20. The cause of the fire is under investigation. And a fire burning south of Helena is now 25% contained. The 1,100-acre Lump Gulch fire initially had firefighters worried about spread into residential areas. Hand crews, engines, and heavy equipment are working to create more secure containment lines tonight. Fire crews are benefiting from the better weather today, and pre-evacuation orders have been canceled. Now turning to Chief Forecaster Bob McGuire, and we may be approaching summer, but we have a number of winter storm warnings across our state tonight, Bob.
Winter's not quite through with us yet. Welcome to Montana. Let me talk about this here. What we're going to see here is we've had a lot of rain move in. We had a cold front the last couple of days move through, and that's brought some colder temperatures. And up in the higher elevations, it's getting really cold. So with the moisture running upslope, and it's just producing a great deal of moisture up there, with the cooler temperatures, it's changing over to snow. So much snow that the Weather Service has issued a couple of winter weather advisories, a big winter storm warning. Depending on your elevation, depends on how much snow you're going to get. Like above the 6,500 foot level, you're talking 15 inches of snow. About the 5,500 foot level, about 12 inches of snow. Below that, maybe 6 to 8 inches of snow. In the Beartooth, we're looking at maybe 6 to 8 inches of snow in that area. And if that wasn't enough, we still have the fire weather warning, or red flag warning in Johnson County over there in northern Wyoming because of erratic fire behavior. So just bizarre stuff. So we're looking at some heavy showers and thunderstorms moving in tonight, and then maybe some heavier snow showers. If your travel plans take you from Bozeman all the way to Missoula, you'll see some heavy snow in those areas. We'll have more on the forecast in a few more minutes.
All right, thanks so much, Bob. Well, Bighorn County health authorities just confirmed late this afternoon a third death due to coronavirus. The woman was in her 30s and had already been hospitalized. Now, the county also adds another 2 confirmed cases this afternoon, a female patient in her 20s and a male patient in his 30s. This brings the state's total active cases to 63, and now 20 people have died. Montana public health leaders say they will propose a permanent rule change to stop the sale of flavored vaping products across the state. The Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services implemented an emergency rule last year, temporarily blocking the sale of flavored e-cigarettes and other products. Now, that expired in April. Health leaders say the state is still seeing an epidemic of underage vaping and say restricting flavors would make it less likely for young people to take it up. The federal government has introduced its own restrictions on flavored vapes, but that only includes certain types of products.
This proposed rule is far more comprehensive than what the FDA has done with their guidance. And action needs to be taken to address this youth e-cigarette epidemic, or else we're going to continue to have a whole generation of youth who are addicted to nicotine.
Now, the state will accept written comments on this rule proposal through July 24th. There will also be a public hearing on July 16th that will be held through remote conferencing. Well, a Billings teen is sentenced to 20 years in Montana State Prison for a deadly 2018 crash that claimed the life of a young Billings woman. On Monday, Judge Colette Davies sentenced 18-year-old Jacob Standing Elk to 30 years with 10 years suspended for felony deliberate homicide. In September 2018, prosecutors say Standing Elk was drunk and suicidal while driving up to 120 miles per hour on Wicks Lane when he struck another vehicle and killed 20-year-old Haley Hudson-Byler and injured another woman. Standing Elk was 16 at the time and agreed to plead guilty to charges this past winter. Now, the judge also ruled Standing Elk must pay roughly $47,000 in restitution and will register as a violent offender. The court will review his sentence when he turns 21. Well, Montana roadways proving deadly. The latest fatal crash in our region south of Busby last night just before 8:30 claimed the life of a hardened man. 25-year-old Fletcher Metcalf was headed northeast on Highway 314. He died when his white Dodge truck went off the road. He overcorrected and the truck rolled twice. MHP says speed and alcohol are both considered factors in this case. It's uncertain if Metcalf was wearing a seatbelt. A 23-year-old female passenger was wearing a seatbelt and was transported to a Billings hospital. And 2 Billings teenagers killed in Bighorn County Sunday morning have been identified. 17-year-olds Alina Nelson and James Coburn both died after the vehicle drifted off the road on Old Highway 87, hit an embankment, and ejected both. And the Carbon County Sheriff has identified a Fromberg woman who died in a one-vehicle rollover on Monday. 82-year-old Lavina Morgan died on Highway 310 south of Bridger. The crash also injured a 60-year-old male passenger from Fromberg. Seatbelts were not being used and both were thrown from the vehicle. Well, have you filed your census form yet? As with almost everything else, the COVID-19 pandemic is creating some unprecedented obstacles in the taking of the 2020 census, and that could have a big impact on Montana's future. Q2's Russ Riesinger joins us now from the newsroom to tell us more. Russ.
Well, the census takes place every 10 years, and there is a lot at stake, especially here in Montana. After narrowly missing getting back a second seat in the U.S. House of Representatives in the 2010 census, the prevailing thought was that Montana would have a large enough response this year to earn that representation in Congress again. A low turnout, which seems to be happening right now in parts of the state, could put that in jeopardy, however. In past census years, you might get a knock on your door if you didn't turn your form in. But this year, with COVID-19 spreading, the U.S. Census Bureau changed the way it does operations, instead putting more focus on responding online or by the phone and just leaving a questionnaire on the porch. So far, the return in cities has been normal, but not from rural areas and reservations. Jeff Essman is one of 5 members of the state's Districting and Apportionment Committee.
We have one person that's trying to represent the economic interests and the other policy interests of more than 1 million people. If we have 2 congressmen, obviously they can serve on twice as many congressional committees. The economies of eastern Montana and western Montana are starkly different, and they'd have more attention from a congressman to serve their needs in terms of their relationship with the government.
Will an accurate count help Montana at a federal level, but Esmond says it will also make sure that rural Montanans are represented at the state level when they redistrict Montana's legislative districts. So there is a lot at stake, and that's why it's so important that you watch out for that card. Make sure that you are counted. Jeanelle?
All right, Russ, do you have yours in?
I do.
I do too. All right. Thanks so much. Ahead on tonight's 5:30 News, in Health Watch, how technology is changing the way we manage the risk of exposure and the spread of COVID-19. And in sports, Q2's Athlete of the Week is a jack of all trades. Scott has this terrific story coming up.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Green. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.